Hey, what's up, Crypto Army? I'm Travis, your crypto newbie, bringing you my experiences so you have to learn things the hard way. Just a reminder, I'm not a financial advisor, and none of my content should be viewed as financial advice. So today we're going to continue the CoinTracking.info tax prep coin tracking tutorial, focusing on how to set up the account and how to start loading those transactions into the system. So the first step, obviously, is we need an account. So let's go to CoinTracking.info. And we need to sign up for free. As soon as we hit that button, it's going to give us the option to pick our username, our password, and then enter our email address. The next screen is going to allow you to set some of your defaults, mainly the dollars, your language, and your time zone. And then you can also subscribe to the newsletter. It kind of depends if you want to actually read it or not, to whether you want to subscribe. I subscribe because it does give you some updates on what they're trying to do with the software. And there's some benefits in getting that information and reading it there versus having to come back to the website and look for it later. And then all you do is click add or import your transactions now, and then you'll be off to the races on importing all of your transactions. On the next screen, you're going to select where you want to import from. And it really is just as easy as selecting one. So let's go ahead and select an exchange to begin with, just to see what the process looks like. So we'll check Coinbase. You have the option for CSV or API. A CSV file is essentially an Excel file you would download from Coinbase. It's a very effective way to load the information in. The API option is another option you can get directly from Coinbase. So you log into Coinbase and look for the API option, look for that link, and you would put it in here if we select this. And it walks you through this. And it says, log into Coinbase. It says essentially what I just said when you go through this process. Now that we're in the API section, as you can see here, you can see comparison between the two. What they failed to tell you at the top, and you have to all the way to the bottom to figure out, is that this is only going to work if you are a paid subscriber. So if you aren't paying for it, if you're only using the free, then you would want to use the CSV option. And that's why I started here first, because this is going to tell you the most information on which option is best for you. There are some benefits if you're a paid subscriber to using the API process, because you can set this up that it automatically tracks your transactions. The benefit of using the automatic transactions is you log in, it does its update and pulls all of your transaction information directly into this. By contrast, when you look at the CSV import, you are essentially downloading an Excel file from Coinbase and uploading it here. It interprets that data and builds all your transaction histories, which is pretty good. It's just that you're going to have to continually manually import your transactions, and that might not be what you're looking for. That is the approach I went with. When I started using this, I did the exact same thing I recommend you all do. Start off with a free version. It is not going to be a perfect link when you use a CSV file. An API is more likely to be successful in the import process and ensuring that the information that's displayed on your dashboard is accurate to what is actually going on inside of your account. There can be some glitches when CSV files are downloaded, so expect that you're going to have to clean up the data a little bit when you go through that process. And this is essentially how it works for most of the exchanges. So that's why I said I'm not going to focus a lot on this process, because it's pretty simple to understand what to do. Sometimes the APIs and the CSV files at the actual exchange can be kind of a challenge to figure out. But that's not the focus of this video, and I haven't tried every single exchange out there. I really don't like exchanges because they have a tendency to get hacked and you lose all your money. Now, you might have an argument that that happens with wallets, and you're right, it does. But I feel like I have more control over my situation than the exchange's situation. Take Bitmart as a great example. But that is essentially how you would do it with an exchange. So what about wallets? Now let's scroll down here a little bit. And then we've got our wallet imports. These are the wallets that are automatically supported. So if you've got a ledger, you're in luck. And you can see it's going to be another CSV option. Every one of these is going to be a CSV import. Let's continue to scroll down a little bit here. So automatic API wallet import. And you'll see here, you've got BSC, you've got BNB, you've got ETH, you've got quite a few options, Solana. So you've got a lot of the really big cryptos out there. Plus, you've got the 200 altcoins that you could look at here if you want to do the API import for. And then finally, you've just got the CSV, Excel, and custom exchange import. Let's go ahead and click on the BSC import. So you land at this page here, and as you can see, it's very similar to the exchange options and the other options we've been looking at. You really can interact with all of them from this single page, which is kind of nice. I like the ability to do that from here and not have to go back to the other page to do this. Your BSC address. Now, for example, if you're in Trust Wallet and you go to Binance Smart Chain, select on the receive, you want to receive Binance Smart Chain, that wallet address, that is the wallet address you need to enter into here in order to link it to your BSC wallet address. So every transaction that Trust Wallet has for your wallet that's BSC will be imported. Sounds pretty cool, right? And you can configure this a little bit. So make sure you do some thought about what you want this to look like, because it's going to matter once you import it. All incoming, outgoing transactions, only the incoming, only the outgoing. I usually recommend going with all. You can also configure the drop-down boxes here if you want all of your imported transactions to be a certain way, or all of your outgoing transactions to be a different way. You can kind of configure it here. This option, you're still going to have to go back through and manually adjust some of the transactions. So just keep that in mind. This is not necessarily going to be a perfect import process. I've spent quite a few hours going through the import process, and I'm actually going to demonstrate with a different wallet, not one of mine. I'm just going to pull a random one off BSC Scan and import it. Labels are optional. You don't have to do anything with the label. Here's which one does matter. So exchange name, think of this as how you're going to recognize that information inside of the system. So if you've got more than one wallet, you would want to make sure that you've got the appropriate name for it. For example, Trust Wallet. Well, if you've got more than one wallet inside of Trust Wallet, that's probably not going to be very effective. And it's kind of like if you're creating the wallets in Trust Wallet where you name it, you might want to just use those. So it's consistent between the two systems on what transactions belong where and where the transactions should be recorded at. So just keep that in mind. There's a little bit of thought process that goes into this process. And you would need to do the same thing with any other cryptos you have inside of Trust Wallet in order for it to be accurate. And then you would just hit import transactions and activate the job. Now keep in mind, when you set this up, it's going to continue to monitor that address and continue to add every transaction. So it really does keep track of everything moving forward, making it a really effective tool. So let's go ahead and import a BSC address and see how the process goes. Now I've titled this one BSC Wallet 1. I want everything, and I don't want to set up an email right now, but that's a great option if you want to keep an eye on any transactions in your wallet, because this will also notify you when you get dust. Again, that's another transaction. It's a good option if you want to keep notified of any transactions inside of your wallet, especially if you didn't authorize them. And all you would do is click the import all BSC transactions and activate the job. Once you click the button, you're taken to this page, and it can take a while depending on how many transactions are being loaded in. Now I selected a wallet that had a little over 200 to import, so I thought that might be a good time for us to see what happens if you try to go over 200 transactions at the process of importing. Now, when you go back to the main page, you might find this. The data on this page is not correct because your trades have not been calculated yet. You're going to see down here, Recalculate Trades. So you just click the Recalculate Trade button, and it will basically apply all the different information as it's being loaded. But again, it might take a little bit of time, and the best way to see if it's working or not is to go up to Enter Coins, Overview, and Manual Import. So it's got 10 pages showing 819 different entries. Now, you might remember I said there's more than 200 transactions. Some of those transactions result in multiple transactions. And it'll make more sense when I explain how to load transactions in. Let's go back to the dashboard for a second and just look at this BSC address. So this person's got a lot of money. I picked a very wealthy individual for this demonstration. So you can see over $1 million in investments. And you can see the biggest one by far is Evergrow coin. So you can guess where I got this address from. I probably went to the Evergrow token to pull this address. $900 in Binance Pegged USD, $48,000 in Porto. You get the drift. But it gives us a good opportunity to see what this interface looks like. So you can see the percentage. Obviously, the biggest one here is Evergrow coin. We've only loaded one exchange at this point. Once you start loading more exchanges, they'll show up here as well. The number of trades per month, and you can kind of see where the data and where these views are really powerful. It's got a lot of really good information when you go look at this. And then obviously we've got the timeline here. Now, I don't know whether this is accurate or not. I don't own this wallet. I have no idea. And your wallet, you're going to have to assess whether it matches or not. So you're going to look at your wallet and does it match up or not? Another really good way to do this is if you go over to reporting and look at balance by exchange. So this is everything that's inside of that wallet. You can see a lot of this is just dust. And you can go through and delete a lot of these out of this system. Again, you want to ignore any dust inside of your wallet because if you interact with it, it could drain your entire wallet out of it. So it's better just to leave it alone and do anything with it. But you can go through and clean up the transactions and get rid of all of the dust transactions so that the only thing here is the transactions you really care about or the tokens you only care about. So Binance Backed USD is obviously a big one. Anything that's got a substantial dollar amount on it, you're probably going to want to keep inside the system. That way you can get rid of all these zero balance tokens. It seems like the more money you've got in the token, the more likely you are to get dust, because I don't have quite this much dust that comes into my wallet. I've got a lot of dust, but nowhere near this amount. But this is a good way to get a snapshot and do a comparison to your Trust wallet, is just look at the balance by exchange. This is one of the ways I generally look at it. And after every transaction that I do, I come back here and just make sure everything lines up correctly. Now, the next thing is enter coins. So if we go to overview and manual import, let's say that you load everything up and it's way off. It's got a whole bunch of information that's out of whack. Everything just doesn't match. It's just a mess. That was my experience. I turned off the automatic tracking because it was just easier to manually import everything after I cleaned everything up. Now, for this person, if they want to clean it up, it's going to take a while. 800 transactions is not easy to go through and clean up. Some of it's easier because you can get rid of all the stuff that you know doesn't matter. So if you click on these buttons here, it sorts everything. So you can kind of clean it up a little bit easier that way. You can also do mass delete. So if you select multiple things, you can delete multiple different transactions. You just got to be careful that you don't delete something you actually need. Now, when I tried this, I had problems when it was over 200 transactions. So maybe they've adjusted that at this point. I'm not sure. But it's nice that you can actually import all of your transactions. But you are going to run into problems using the system for everything over the 200 transaction limit in other areas within this. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at the reporting again. So there's checks. Now, because it was an automatic update, generally you don't run into any problems on the checks. And here's where I'm going to talk about the information that's displayed. So if we go to missing transactions, we scroll down here and not very helpful because there's 497 entries. So it's not clear what you would want to do when most of your transactions are being identified as finding missing transactions deposits with no matches. I mean, that's kind of a lot. And we're only hiding the ones that have 90 to 100% matches. Or we could do show all, which shows us 561. But 511 with no match, 20 mediums. I'm not exactly sure how effective this tool is. And what I've recommended to the team in the past is it'd probably be helpful if they included a how-to video for how to interpret this and what to do with it. Because what do you do with it? I've got no idea. I generally look at it and try to understand where there's a gap because I don't have this many errors on my report, but I just don't know that this is effective because there's no information on what to do with it. This is where I say I'm not entirely sure that these are helpful tools. It could be very helpful if they provided some more information. Let's go ahead and take a look at one of the other ones. So duplicate transactions. This one actually does matter. And you can see there isn't any. And you would expect that with an automatic import. I've never actually had a duplicate transaction problem because I manually import everything and I don't do it twice. Let's go ahead and take a look at validate transactions. This is an area where I frequently have issues. And my recommendation again to the team would be to provide information on what to do with the information that they provide on this page because it's not necessarily intuitive how to fix it if there's an issue. Because I've actually had legitimate issues. Part of it was how you're supposed to load information in when you're using Trust Wallet and PancakeSwap and MoonPay and Simplex. It's just not intuitive to manually add transactions in. But let's take a look at one of these notices. Not a matching asset value. I have a lot of these. And I think what causes this particular issue is the fees associated with cryptos. I don't have these issues with ones that don't have fees. The ones that do, pretty much every one of them has this problem. So when you load it in, what you get back as far as total tokens is far less than what you should based off what you pay for it. And that's because of the fee. And that fee isn't really recorded anywhere. What happens is the price per token that is recorded here that you're actually paying shifts because of the fee. There should be a way to acknowledge the notice and hide it, because I don't want to see the 53, I think this person might have, the 53 notices every single time I go in here. I should be able to acknowledge it and make it go away, because I can't do anything with it. That way I can focus on legitimate ones when they come back. Notices aren't necessarily an error or an issue. There are others, and it'll actually show up as an error or a warning. Those you really want to pay attention to. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the tax report, because that's kind of why everybody's here, is to see the tax report. And as you can see, it shows you kind of a graphical of what you did. Now, this person apparently was only really active in September and October of this year, a little bit in November, and pretty much nothing prior to then. So probably created this wall to interact with Evergo Coin, as we saw based on the dollar value. And that's pretty much it. And if we scroll down here, here's where you can actually build your tax reports. So again, 2021 would be the year. So you're looking for everything in 2021. First in, first out is generally the recommendation. You have to choose your country. We're going to choose the US for this one. And you can adjust everything else on here based on your understanding of taxes and how things work, but we're going to hit generate. And down here is where that report's going to be generated. And then you can actually load that report by clicking on load report. And here is the summary. So you can see there's capital gains, fees that were paid, unrealized gain of $1 million. That's not too bad. And then you can download the tax statements. You can also scroll down here and see things. And here's where, again, I recommend putting some videos together to explain what to do with some of this stuff. And as we can see here, there's 27 warnings inside of this report. And each of those warnings you're going to want to take a look at. And if you have questions about what the warning is or what you need to do, again, reach out to customer service. They will help you through this. Sometimes you have to send them screen captures. They have the ability to actually take a look at your account and actually give you some screen captures back of, hey, this is what you need to do. That's what they did for some of my warnings, but very engaged customer service. And they were doing that before I even paid into this program, which was pretty phenomenal. And it sold me on why I wanted to get into this over some of the others that I looked at. Now, one of the really cool things you can do here is you can just click the form. And you can download the form right here. Or you can download the PDF, or you can download the CSV. You've got a ton of options for interacting with this system, which is one of the reasons why I really like this platform. Now you can also take a look at the summary data on all of these, because there's more. There's income reports, there's gifts and donations. There's a whole bunch of different options here depending on what the transactions are loaded in as. You're going to want to go in and go through all of your transactions to make sure that you do it correctly. The other thing you're going to have to do for the rewards tokens or the reflections tokens that are there, it might not load the actual number of tokens you've got. You're going to want to check those balances just to make sure that they're correct. A lot of times they load what you actually purchased, and they don't load all of those included reflections or rewards during the import process. And you would just do a manual transaction to update the total quantity, adding whatever those quantities were. Keep in mind that the date that they were added varies. You really should be keeping track, at least on a monthly basis, of how much you get in rewards or reflections. Binance Pegged USD is not as much of an issue. Stablecoins is not as much of an issue as it is those reflection tokens, because the value at the time of receipt is really what you should be recording. But there's not necessarily great tax information from the IRS that explains what to do with reflection tokens at this point. So there's a bit of a gray area on what is right. As long as you're making a good effort to record the information, that's kind of what matters. Now, I have reached out to customer service and asked the question, hey, how are we supposed to do rewards tokens with your system? How are we supposed to do these reflections? They're looking into it. So more to follow on how that's going to work for CoinTracking.info. And it's the same problem for most of the programs out there. I've yet to find one that actually does it correctly. Now, lost and stolen, if that happened to you, those are some of the things you're going to have to modify transactions to properly record that. I've never lost anything, but I've had stolen crypto. So this is something you might need to do depending on your personal experiences. So make sure that you update this information as well. And then your closing position report. And that's pretty much all of the different reports that this is going to give you the option to interact with. Some of the really cool things about this tax report, you've got Tax Act and you got TurboTax. And then you've got Drake, I'm not familiar with that one, and Wizo. Let's go ahead and click the TurboTax button. It'll take you to a page where you can download your data. And again, it's going to give you some information about what you can download and what you can't download. And I'm not sure if they still have a TurboTax desktop version. If they do, then here would be the option you would want to use. But it gives you the directions. And again, if you exceed the maximum number of transactions, download the summarized version. So in theory, this would still work for you even if you exceed the transaction limit. Now, another really cool option that CoinTracking provides, if you go to the tax report and full service, it'll take you to here. Now, you can request full service tax support, which provides experts from CoinTracking along with tax experts to make sure that your crypto information is correct before you file. Now, it is kind of pricey depending on where you live. Let's go ahead and take a look at it. So request full service. We'll select the United States, and you can see how much it's going to cost. Now, the complete expert review, and this is just a review, is $325. Again, they just look at it. The full service basic is $975. The advanced full service, quite a bit more. And then you start getting into the actual tax services where they actually do everything for you, and that's about $1,250. Again, very different. This is account, this is tax, and this is just a review. But if you really want to pay the extra money, you can go that route as well. Or you can just make sure that everything that you put inside of this system is correct and that you've recorded everything correctly. This one really comes down to personal preference on how confident they are in their data. If you're confident that you did it right on the data, then you don't really need to worry about this. Now, if you're not so confident about the data, then you might want to take a look at this. Now, let's say you import everything and you're looking at it and it's just too big a mess. You want to start over from scratch because you screwed something up. What would you need to do? Bulk edit and delete is exactly what you're looking for. So you click on this button here, delete all transactions, start over fresh. This is the preferred approach for getting rid of everything. And let's go ahead and delete. And all 819 transactions have been deleted. Then we'll go up and refresh. And as you can see, no longer have any transactions loaded into the system. What if you did the import and it was so messed up and you just want to start fresh and you want to do everything yourself? Well, they have that option as well. So from this page here, you can do the automatic import, or you can just click here and hit new. Now, here's where I say that they could probably make this a little bit better for importing your information. How these things work for adding them in there is kind of confusing. And let me explain. Let's go through an actual transaction to show you what I'm talking about. So let's say you're in Trust Wallet and you're trying to buy BSC. What do you have to do? So the first thing you would want to do is deposit. Because where's the money coming from? You're using US dollars or using some kind of a currency. So you got to make sure you actually put that currency as an available asset that you can use. So you have to deposit it. So let's deposit. And let's say it's $1,000. Well, it's US dollars. So we'll select US dollars. There's no transaction fee at this point. Now, if you're using Trust Wallet, then you're probably using MoonPay or Simplex. So those are the two options you would have. There are fees. My recommendation is to put those a little bit further in because right now you're just saying, hey, I need to have $1,000. This transaction is going to be $1,000 to do. What's the exchange? Well, it's going to be Trust Wallet or whatever you've named your different wallets, depending on what it is. And then you put in whatever comment you want. You don't have to put a comment. It's completely up to you. I'm just going to say a deposit of US dollars. And then we hit add transaction. That's the first one. Now, MoonPay's got access to it. We're going to trade US dollars for Binance Smart Chain. So how much Binance Smart Chain can we get for $1,000? We can get roughly 2. We'll just keep things simple for right now. And it's BNB. They don't have a Binance Smart Chain differentiator here, so just call it BNB. And that costs you how much for US dollars? Well, keep in mind now you're getting into fees. And when you buy on MoonPay and you buy on Simplex, most of the time you get those fees back. They're in US dollars. They're not necessarily going to be in BNB. What you need to do is, what is the dollar amount of the actual BNB? And it might be for 2 BNB. It might be that you're paying $975. Just guessing. This doesn't really matter. Which means that you've got a $25 fee that you've got to record. So for this example, let's go ahead and put that right here. $25 fee in US dollars. So now we've accounted for every single US dollar that we're using, correct? $25 fee, $975 to buy 2 in BNB. We're probably going to get a notice about the data doesn't make sense, which is fine. Again, it's going to be Trust Wallet, and you can put whatever you want in here. A lot of times what I do is I'll put a comment of whatever I'm trying to do. You know, I'm buying BNB with Trust Wallet, MoonPay, and then I'll put the actual transaction link in the description. So if I have any future questions, I'll have that transaction link that I can go look at it. And we're done, right? Let's go ahead and hit Add Transaction. Now, in order for this to be fully recorded, we have to refresh. We're going to get a Recalculate button down here. So we'll go ahead and click that. We'll wait for it to recalculate. Now let's go ahead and look at balance by exchange. Now when we look at it, you can see that we've got 2 BNB. The value at the transaction was $995. Most of this other stuff really doesn't matter. But wait, we've still got $25 in there. Why do I still have $25 in there? The fee was $25. Why do I still have a fee? Kind of strange, right? It took me a long time to figure out that it really doesn't like fees. And I did contact customer service and they said, yeah, the fees got to be in the same currency of whatever. So the fees got to be in the same currency of whatever you're buying. So if we're buying BNB, the fees got to be recorded in BNB. Sometimes the transactions are listed that way. Most of the times it's in US dollars when you use MoonPay or Simplex. If you go to the actual transaction, it is going to show you a fee for that actual BNB transaction, but it's not going to be the full fee. Things aren't going to add up. The actual receipt that you get from MoonPay and Simplex, it's going to add up. And that one's usually going to have dollars. So you run into this problem where things just aren't being recorded correctly inside of the system. This is why you have to learn how to put this thing in correctly. So let's go back to Overview and Manual Import. So if we go to here, this can't be like this. So we're going to edit this one. You can click here and delete it. I just prefer to actually just edit the transaction. And we're going to remove this fee. We're going to hit the update button. Now, if we were to refresh, we'd still have the same problem. So what we need to do is create a new transaction. Instead of a trade, it's going to be, let's hit the show advanced. Here's all the other options too. And we're going to call it an other fee. The amount is $25 US dollars. It's again on Trust Wallet. And you can put whatever comment. Usually, again, I try to put the actual transaction information in here. And then we'll hit Add Transaction. We'll hit the refresh button again. We'll hit the recalculate when it pops up. And then we go back to our balance by exchange. And now we'll have an accurate amount. We have 0 US dollars. We have 2 BNB. So everything matches correctly. And if we go up to reporting and we go look at missing transactions, we've got no missing transactions. If we go up to reporting, we're not going to have any duplicate transactions, but let's go ahead and take a look at validate transactions. Everything looks good. No issues. That would be how you would manually load it in. And you can see that something as simple as buying BNB with Trust Wallet turns into a little bit of work as far as transactions go. 3 transactions to effectively do one thing, and we haven't even done a swap yet. If you're doing a trade, you can run into the same kind of problem. So let's go ahead and take a look at what the trade process looks like. So the trade process, what you would do is the exact same thing. You would do a new transaction. It would already load up as a trade because that's the most common thing that people are doing. What are you getting? it's Evergrow Coin or Reflex Token or any of the numerous other options that are out there. What are you selling? BNB. And what is the trading fee? BNB. That's generally what's going to pop up if you're talking about BEP20 tokens, Trust Wallet, and then you would just add the transaction, go back through and make sure everything matches up. Usually where there's a discrepancy is your available BNB left. See if it's the fee. If it's the difference of the fee, then just manually add the other fee. That's what I do. So what my process is, I never use this fee ever. I always just manually load every single fee in, and I make sure that it encompasses actually what the fees were. Sometimes you'll have multiple fees on a transaction, depending on which crypto you're talking about. I make sure that every single fee that I'm paying as part of that process is recorded, because it's a fee. I'm paying that fee. I want to make sure it's being recorded. So I don't normally use this, and I don't know what the solution to this is for the coin tracking, but this is way too much work to load in transactions manually. The easier way is the automatic option, but it doesn't always work correctly, and it doesn't always record those fees correctly. And that would be how you work this around. So if you're walking through the entire process, what are you going to see? You'll see the deposit of the US dollars. You're going to see the swap between US dollars and the BNB. You're going to see the fee associated with that process. Then you're going to see the trade from BNB to whatever crypto you're buying. And then you're going to see the fee associated with that. That's quite a few transactions for essentially one thing that you're doing, right? So just be aware. That's my only complaint about using this system, is it's not necessarily intuitive for what should be a much easier process. And again, if there is a better way to do it, and I actually reached out to customer service and asked the question, hey, is this the accurate way to do it? Now, they did say that you should be able to put the other fees in some of these transactions. In my experience, it just doesn't work most of the time. So I always have to separate it off because there's always a gap of the fee. And I don't necessarily have that problem when I do it separately. I do see sometimes where I get done with everything. I enter everything in the way that it was supposed to be. And I do have a little bit of a gap between what my Trust Wallet shows me and what this system shows me. I don't know what causes that. And it's usually lower. So it's almost like there's a missing fee that isn't being accounted for someplace, but I'm copying and pasting the information directly out of the BSC scan transaction list. There shouldn't be any gap in the data. I trust this information better. I think there's something weird going on sometimes in how the transactions are being recorded on BSC scan, or it's almost like there's a something taken off the top that is not being recorded correctly. And I'm not sure. It's not entirely clear exactly what causes that problem. But if I'm entering the information exactly as it is on the BSC scan into this system, there shouldn't be a difference. Usually what I have to do is add another fee for a small amount to make sure that the amount of BSC that I've got matches what's actually available in my Trust Wallet. Now you can see why I chose to break this video up into two parts, because this was a pretty lengthy video. And it would have been almost an hour if I hadn't done it this way. So I hope you like this approach over just doing everything in one video. That's everything I wanted to cover on CoinTracking.info at this particular time. I might cover some other transactions in the future. Let me know in the comments, is there anything when you're using this system that you run into problems with, and I'll try to do content on that. Until next time, stay strong with those diamond hands.